I'm Jean Hill. We begin our 11-minute look at tonight's top news, weather, and sports with what seemed to be the impossible. Happening tonight, Buffalo Bills and their fans are riding on a cloud 9 after a spectacular win over the Houston Oilers. The only unfortunate thing about this game is that most Western New Yorkers weren't able to see it because of a blackout. But Jerry begins our team coverage with a look at the highlights. Jerry?
Okay, Gene, for the Bills and their fans, it goes down as the greatest comeback in NFL history. For the Houston Oilers, it's the greatest choke job. With starters Kelly, Bennett, and Jackson out, with Thurman Thomas sidelined with a hip injury, the Bills give a priceless memory to themselves and fans in winning the wildest of wildcard games. At 1:41 into the third quarter, the Bills are getting beat 35-3, but they are not beaten. A 50-yard drive ends with Kenneth Davis going in from 1 yard out. It's 35-10. Following an onside kick recovery, Frank Reich goes to the air, connects with Don Beebe for 38 yards. He goes in for the touchdown, make it 35-17. With the defense doing their part, enter Andre Reed, 26 yards. He's got it for the touchdown. It's 35-24. Following an interception, it's the Reich to Reed connection again, 35-31. The 28 points in the third quarter would set an NFL postseason record. It would be 38-38 in overtime until Steve Christie hits for the game winner.
From being down, 35-3, and Frank getting us back in the saddle, and to be even in the opportunity to have the opportunity to go out and kick it, I mean, it was unbelievable.
If you had to do it all over again, would you be a soccer player or a football player? If you had to wear the Glasgow Celtic?
Oh, I'd definitely go with the soccer, but back then when I made the decision to play football, excuse me, the opportunities in Canada to play soccer there weren't too many opportunities to really shoot for, especially to make a living. And I spent a little bit of time with the Junior World Cup team and found out that football was going to present itself. Certainly more opportunities to get an education, and certainly really had to settle with giving up a sport I loved and heading south to pursue that dream, as it were, at the college level.
Well, how'd you play Glasgow as sort of your premier team that you why them?
My coach for the Canadian team played for them. He was a winger, and his name was Tony Taylor. And just his work ethic and what he expected from us, and his love and sort of desire to better the game really made an influence, really led me to not only Celtic, but increase my love of the game.
Yeah. So you come over the border, and you ultimately selected William and Mary. Why them? Had they been recruiting you? No,
I didn't select. They selected me. Okay. I was ready to go to Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick, and play soccer and football there. Right. And when I was on my recruiting trip, they had a player lined up, a kicker and a punter lined up to sign, and he ended up going to another school, and so the door opened, and they needed someone right away that could play. And I certainly had to go to a smaller school so that I could play right away. I'd only played football for a couple of years in high school, so I really couldn't afford to go to a big school and sit on the bench for a couple of years. I had to get right in it, and it just worked out. I was very fortunate.
Did you have to audition for them? Did they sort of the combine? Have they had such a thing?
No, there's no such thing. I had one game tape, and that's all I had, because up there in Canada, when you're playing on the back of the lot, as it were, kids would be leaving their classes and cutting across the field as we're playing the game. It was kind of I wouldn't say small time, but it was a little bit different, and you'd be lucky to have 20 people there, yeah, at some of the games. And so film, we didn't have a lot of film, so we had one film, a game film from our final, the Halton final, that was played at Ivor Wynne Stadium in Hamilton. Right. And at the time, that was a big thrill, to be able to play, in the CFL stadium. And it wasn't until I got in the NFL I realized how big the other stadiums were, But at the time, that was all the film that I had, and I think I punted once and had a couple field goals and kicked off well. So that was the film that did it for me.
Did you have a favorite CFL team?
Hamilton.
Tiger Cats?
Yeah, Tiger Cats, and maybe the Argos. Argos now, because the head coach I actually played with in college, Pinball Clemens, so there's a relationship there for sure.
So you're William and Mary. I know there was a thing on the internet that you'd kicked up during practice at one point. You said you kicked a field goal of 71 yards?
That was with the Bills at Fredonia.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. It's one of those days where you just keep going back and keep going back, and it was with a snapper and a holder,
yeah.
So I'd like to think that it was pretty legit. It wasn't like I was out in a field and in a hayfield hitting it. It was with the timing and, you know, our normal procedure.
At Fredonia.
And a lot of wind. In my face, of course.
So you're signed by Tampa Bay. Were you surprised that, you know, when the NFL finally called and you'd been drafted and you're on your way to the NFL?
Well, I was drafted in the CFL first, and that's only for Canadian citizens. So I was drafted by Edmonton in the first round, and I thought, well, okay, if I'm a first rounder in Canada, I'm sure I'll do pretty well in the NFL draft. I didn't get a call until the 10th round, and it was Tampa, who they never talked to me. I had no idea they were interested. I worked out for the Eagles and the Chargers, and so I thought, well, you know, I'll get picked up by then. Well, the phone never rang, and by the time the 10th round came around, it was the second day, and I was kind of nervous and upset, you know, thinking, wow, Mel Kiper said I was going to be a third rounder. Well, you know, again, the phone didn't ring. And after the entire draft was over, the phone didn't ring either. And I thought, man, I'm not even getting drafted. I'm going to go the free agent route. And then Tampa called and said, get over here right now.
Right.
I said, sure. So I walked in there in the dressing room and looking around, and Vinny Testaverde's there, and Joe Ferguson had just left, but all this stuff was still in the locker. And I was like, wow, this is cool, you know. And Ray Perkins, the head coach, came up to me and he grabbed me and just literally grabbed me and said, son, you don't have to kick a ball. We want to sign you right now. And I didn't know for what money or anything. I said, okay, sure, you know. And that was it. That was a buck.
Buccaneer for 2 years, and then you follow Scott Norwood to Buffalo. Mm-hmm. Was that hard to come in and given the circumstances under which Norwood's departure? Did you have any chance to talk to him during that period?
We actually kicked against each other in minicamp.
Right.
So when I signed one of the last years of Plan B free agency, I came up from Tampa, and Scott was still there, and it was a bit tough because you know, he was well loved by the fans. In fact, I think there's about 1,500 people that stood outside the stadium protesting my arrival, which wasn't too cool to me on my, you know, and I thought it was a classy thing. And Scott, you know, after the Super Bowl, I thought he handled everything really well and was a tremendous role model, and he's a heck of a guy. I see him now once a year. We play golf together up at Midvale for Camp Good Days and Special Times, and he's a fantastic guy, and it was difficult to come in. But knowing that's a business, I knew that my time would come too, where someone else would come in for me. So.
And you kind of know that. I mean, the reality is, it's like a head coach. It's like anything else. You're there and you're gone. It is a business.
It's a business. It's temporary, and I think that's the one thing that I would tell the young guys, the rookies, and you know, second and third year guys. It's like, hey, this does not last forever. Save your money, and you know, try to help out other people because it's a platform, and take advantage of it, and get out in the community and do something, because that's the one thing that irks me is guys that sit on their hands when they can go out and help somebody. And there's a lot of guys right now with the Bills that are really out in the community, and it shows, and it makes a difference.
Well, you have been always a role model in a variety of things, and so, you know, congratulations. Of course, you've been involved in so many interesting games, but the one you always see is that. Talk to me about that game, the comeback. Halftime, it's, you know, here you are down 28 or 20, whatever it was, 25-3. It was substantial, and then come out the second half, and there's an interception, and it's even worse.
Oh, it was terrible. Darryl Talley was running up and down the locker room saying, "Come on, guys, it's not over, it's not over." And we're kind of looking around, going, "Who's he talking to?"
Yeah.
You know, this guy's crazy. And like
a lot of character, and for us to be getting that butt beaten in our own backyard doesn't make any sense, and for us to play like we did the first half. I mean, it was like they were just running through us like we were a sieve. And, you know, Walt told us at halftime that, "Good, Mr. Wilson. Hey, 60 minutes, baby." Told him that's what it takes, 60.
Came out and threw a pick, first play out, but the thing is, we never really gave up, and we kept making plays, and we got an onside kick, and things went off from there, and a couple of big receptions, a couple of big passes downfield, and we were back in the game.
Did you get a sense, though, I mean, really, as it was progressing along, that there was a rah-rah guy that was really making it, or was it just a...
It's kind of a feeling that things were, the momentum was definitely changing our way. The question was, do we have enough time to really make up for the deficit? And that was the amazing thing, is that we were able to catch up, and they fumbled a field goal attempt too, and that helped us.
That's right.
That was 3 points there that we really couldn't afford to give up. So that was huge, and that's when you really knew that things were changing, and we had a shot to win it.
And actually, Del Greco got the field goal with 12 seconds left to go into overtime. Was that sort of a deflating thing, saying, oh my gosh, we've gone this far, this fast, and...
Well, no, I think because we were down by so much at that point, we all realized that, hey, so what? We get in the overtime, that's way better than we were at halftime.
That's right.
You know, this game is still ours. We still have an opportunity. It's, you know, take advantage of whatever we get at this point.
Well, tell me, as you see the picture again, was the adrenaline pumping a little bit more than ever, where, in fact, this field goal would have put you into a position where nobody's ever been before? Such a...
I didn't think of that at the time. This was my first playoff game. So basically it was a 32-yarder. That's all it was. I hit those in practice every day, and that's how I looked at it. You know, hey, this is an opportunity to finish off a great game. I didn't know it was the greatest comeback ever until the next day. And the great thing is that Frank Reich was my holder, so it was neat for me to be on the field with him when it was all said and done, and we got the game over with. And, you know, you didn't come down from that game until maybe the next day.
Right.
You just, you know, I got home and, you know, had dinner or whatever and lay in bed just going, wow, what happened? And then I realized if all the playoff games are going to be like this, forget it, I'm done. I can't handle all this pressure. It was crazy pressure when you think about it.
Yeah.
Afterwards. I always thought about the pressure after. I never really worried about it during a game.
Right.
And now I think back, and generally speaking, for every Sunday, there's times I look back and I say, well, who was that guy?
Right.
You know, what happened on Sunday? There's a switch in there, and I think we all have it at that level. There's a sort of an on and off switch, and at 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, it's on.
Right.
Puts it down. The kick is on the way, and it is good. And the Bills have won it. The Bills have won it. The Bills have won it. They win it 41-48. Incredible. What a
The Buffalo Bills beat the odds and make the biggest comeback win in NFL history. Good evening, I'm Lila's Harrison. Rich Newberg has the night off. Our top story tonight, it was the tale of two halves out at Rich Stadium, and it had a very happy ending if you're a Bills fan. Chuck Howard joins me now to talk about one of the greatest moments in Buffalo sports history. Chuck, what a game.
Have you come down yet?
Oh, no. No way, it'll take a while.
I stuck with the Bills the entire way. End of the first half, I knew they'd do it just like you. Hey, not just the greatest comeback in NFL playoff history, but try the greatest comeback in NFL history, period. The Bills rallied from a 32-point third-quarter deficit to down the Oilers 41-38 in overtime. The Bills stay alive and now face the Steelers next week in Pittsburgh. As Miles said, it basically was a tale of two halves, plain and simple. Unfortunately, many of you folks didn't have a chance to see the game because of the television blackout, but with some help from my buddy Van Miller, who did the game on WGR Radio, we'll relive this baby hand in hand. 75,000 Bills fans did manage to make it out to Rich Stadium this afternoon, and they were stunned early on as the Oilers managed back-to-back 80-yard drives. Warren Moon to Haywood Jeffries to get the scoring going early in the first quarter.
Moon waiting for the snap, drops back, looks, fakes once, now starts to run, now throws, touchdown. He got him in the end
zone. A 3-yard pass from Moon to Jeffries. It was 7-0 Oilers after a 9-minute, 9-second, 80-yard drive. The Bills did manage their only points of the first half. Late in the first quarter, Christie, a 36-yard field goal. It was Oilers 7, Bills 3 after one quarter, but then came quarter number 2.
Here's the pass coming up, looking to the end zone, and it is caught for the touchdown by Webster Slaughter, I believe.
Moon 7 yards to Slaughter, another 80-yard drive that took 7 minutes, 25 seconds. It was a 14-3 game. And then the next possession by the Oilers, Moon again, his third touchdown pass on the day, this time Curtis Duncan on the receiving end.
As time throws, and it is caught for the touchdown. What a reception downfield.
Late second quarter, and Moon would hit Jeffries, this time 27 yards, and it was 28-3 Oilers at the break. The second half, unfortunately, began where it left off for the Bills in the first half.
And incomplete, and intercepted and taken away by the Oilers. Down the left sideline goes Bubba McDowell, and McDowell runs into the end zone for the touchdown. The ball went through
Bubba McDowell, a 58-yard return of the Frank Reich interception, and it was 35-3 Oilers, but then the comeback began.
Davis running left, trying to get to the corner flag, and he is in for the touchdown. So the Bills have finally
Kenneth
scored.
Davis around the left side for a 1-yard touchdown, and it was 35-10. The Bills get the ball back, and they put it in the end zone again.
Sails it long, all Beebe at the 10, at the 5, in for the touchdown. John Beebe was wide open, a blown assignment there.
Reich 38 yards to Beebe following a successful onside kick, and it was 35-17. Bills next possession, and Reich does it again.
Reed at the 5, in for the touchdown. Andre Reed has scored.
Reich on the mark, 26 yards to Reed. It was 35-24, and the Bills were down by just 11 with over 4.5 minutes to go in the third.
There's the snap. He backs up. He looks. He throws. Reed, touchdown. Reed for the touchdown. Unbelievable. The Bills are back.
Following a Henry Jones interception on a 4th and 5, Reich hit Reed from 18 yards out. It was 35-31 after 3 quarters.
He looks, he throws, touchdown! Andre Reed for the touchdown!
Reich 17 yards to Reed, and the Bills had their first lead of the day, 38-35, with 3:08 to go in the 4th quarter. But the Oilers come back at a 26-yarder from Al Del Greco with 15 seconds to go in regulation. We go to overtime. So it was tied at 38 into overtime. The Oilers win the toss, but then Warren Moon, one pass too many. Nate Odom steps in front of this one at the 37, a 2-yard return, and the Bills are in business. Enter Steve Christie to win it.
32 yards from the center of the field. Adam Lingner ready to snap it back. It's 38-all. Bills can win it here. Reich puts it down. The kick is on the way, and it is good. And the Bills have won it. The Bills have won it. The Bills have won it. They win it 41-38. Incredible. What a comeback by the Bills.
And the fans are all over the field.
Absolutely incredible. This place is pandemonium.
Look at the fans pouring onto the field and the mob scene of Steve Christie.
Let's go down to the locker room, Mark. All right, the Bills trailed this game 35-3.
They come back in the second.
And the Bills win it, as Van said, 41-38 in overtime. And hey, Marv Levy, you never know.
Three Super Bowl?
Two.
Super Bowl games. Did you feel that the Buffaloes, I hate to say the mystique in the negative sense, but gee, here we are, we're right at the crest, and we just can't get over it. Did that play at all in the locker room at all? Or
No.
was it, gee, now this is the one we're going to kick through?
I mean, there was some of that because, you know, it's very difficult to go back.
Right.
And we've seen that happen over and over again where, you know, a lot of the guys, they have great teams. Look at Pittsburgh.
Right.
You know, they really, not a good defender of this of the championship. Mind you, they did happen to win. And I think not winning, I think coming so close kind of spurred the guys on. And especially the older guys, you could see it, the guys like Ken Hall and, you know, your real leaders out there, you could really see that hunger to get back. The problem was when we got back, you know, the last two that I played in against Dallas, the first one, it really wasn't a game after the first quarter. And I don't think I got on the field the second half. And that tells you how things were going. However, the last one, we were up at halftime. And that was, you know, I think the guys were really upbeat. And it's like, hey, you know what? We have a chance. We have a real opportunity to make this thing go. But a couple turnovers and that's it.
Yeah. The day comes and you off to New York. Was it the Chargers next to the Giants?
Chargers and then the Giants.
Yeah. Was that? Did you care? I mean, in the sense that did you get roots in Buffalo, or is this just the next stop?
No, you know, I was injured, and you know, the Donahoe era cleaned a lot of us out because there was a cap problem, and I understood that. That's part of the business. But because I'm from Southern Ontario, Western New York was my home. became my home and still is, I held a press conference just to thank the fans and all the previous coaches and general managers that brought me up to Buffalo. And when I left Tampa, we were 3-13. I mean, they did me a favor, not knowing that we were going to 2 more Super Bowls. But it was great to come home, and I just, it was a special place, and my agent, Gil Scott, and I decided that, hey, we need to do a presser and tell everybody how much we appreciated the Bills fans, because they are awesome.
Well, that was a class act. As you reflect back, is there a game which sort of stands out in your memory?
Well, the Houston game again.
Yeah.
There's one game that was, we played Denver, and they almost didn't make the flight. They had a big snowstorm out there, and I guess Jason Nealon, the only way he got to the game was his neighbor picked him up in a Hummer and got him to the airport. If his neighbor didn't pick him up, they didn't have a kicker for the game. So I hit a 55-yarder at the end to tie. We ended up losing the game anyway, but I remember that because it was, I think that was my hardest kick. That was a tough kick to make.
By the way, do you still have the longest field goal in Super Bowl history?
Yes.
How long was it?
54.
54.
And that was a small concession for in a game that you lose, like that, of that magnitude that you lose. I mean, it was nice to have.
Next.
Fiction. Bills 31, Cowboys 28.
Bills 35, Cowboys 28.
Judy. 28-24, Bills.
And at some point where they come in and say, Steve, we're just not going to keep you anymore. Is that a hard call to get?
With the Giants, it was kind of a strange situation because they had signed me the week before the first game. Todd France was a rookie. He was there all off season, went to every workout, and had a very good preseason. So I didn't expect to get a call from them. When I came in there, I had a good workout. They signed me. I was almost on the plane back here, but they signed me, and I ended up staying. And at the end of the season, I think it was 36 or 37 at the time, the big fallback was my kickoffs. The colder I got, the shorter they got. Mind you, I kept reminding them that happens to the 25-year-old guys too, but not as much. I was pretty happy with my field goals, but the kickoffs was what really hurt me. They offered me a 1-year deal to come back, and I just wasn't too interested in doing that, you know.
You have become an artist extraordinaire. When did you pick that up? Was that something all your life?
I worked at that in high school, and then in college I was a studio art and art history major. So, like I was saying before, despite the fact that my family has quite a history in the legal profession, I was the black sheep and went to the art side and the athletic side.
Extremely well, and you've been just a real credit to everything you've done in the community and Camp Good Days and everything else. So,
thank you.
I really appreciate it, Steve.
Well, you're welcome. My pleasure.
I see the large crowd looking for your autograph. Thank you.
Unreal in that second half. 4 touchdown passes on the day, and he is no stranger to comebacks. Brian and Van with their thoughts from the stadium.
Playoff tickets aren't cheap, but today you saw 2 games for the price of 1.
Boy, you sure did, Brian. Just when you think you've seen it all, you haven't seen it all. This was the greatest comeback in playoff history in the NFL, without question.
Any way you could figure this would happen when the Bills are down 35-3? I mean, in your eyes, was it lights out?
Well, no, because Houston had thoroughly dominated the first half. They had the ball 4 times, scored 4 touchdowns. Bubba McDowell intercepts. They go up 35-3, and it looked like the game, for all intents and purposes, was over. I tell you, this team has a heart the size of this stadium.
this team rallied like no team has before, as you mentioned. What keyed it, as far as you could tell?
Well, I just think, you know, Frank Reich, first of all, did just a superb job, and the defense came up big, and they made a big play in the overtime when they had to. You've got to make big plays in a game like this, and the Bills did.
As Van mentioned, many key contributors, but probably none bigger than quarterback Frank Reich keying the huge comeback. But for Frank Reich, it's been done before.
And Reich will put it up again.
November 10th, 1984. The Maryland Terrapins trail Miami 31-0. Enter Frank Reich. Witness the greatest comeback in college football history. It was deja vu at Rich Stadium this afternoon.
When we were in at halftime, actually, Gail Gilbert came up to me and really encouraged me, and he reminded me of it. And he said, hey, you did it before in college. He said, there's no reason we can't do it again now. And I think, you know, there's no doubt that gives you a little bit of hope, you know, to know that it has been something like that can be done.
Frank, I think, played the best game I've ever seen a quarterback play in the situation that he's put in. I mean, the guy's got the, what was it, the best comeback in college. Now he owns the one in the National Football League. That's got to say a whole lot for him, man.
The Bills' comeback didn't start out all that well. Starting the second half, Keith McKellar couldn't get the handle on this Frank Reich pass, and Bubba McDowell raced the other way for 6 points, putting Buffalo down 35-3. But Reich immediately responded, leading the Bills on a 50-yard scoring drive. It was just the beginning.
As the comeback was starting to build, could you sense a change in him or feel the confidence level growing?
No, I think Frank stayed kind of poised the whole time. He didn't smile much. He paced back and forth. He probably wore down the turf out there. But I was right there with him, so I probably wore down some myself.
There's not too many things that I can ever tell you that you ever experienced that are anything like that. Just, you know, to hear the crowd just going crazy and just really being there when we needed them, not losing hope in us. The guys on the sideline just, you know, encouraging one another, saying, let's just stick together.
Reich's big plays were plentiful. Reich to Beebe. Reich to Reed. Reich to Reed again on 4th and 5. And the go-ahead score with 3:08 left. Another dart to Andre Reed.
Every time he comes in the ball game, there's probably half of the fans are saying, oh, Frank ain't going to be able to do it. Then another half saying he could do it. We just got to rally behind him, man. That's it.
And while everyone around him was getting caught up in the emotion of this wild comeback, somehow Frank maintained his perspective.
He'll probably kill me for saying this, but right before we kicked the field goal, somebody would say something. I don't even know what was said, but he said a curse word. And he immediately started apologizing to the Lord right there to make sure we didn't miss that field goal.
Frank, as far as Bills fans are concerned, all is forgiven.
32 yards from the center of the field. Adam Lingner ready to snap it back. It's 38-all. Bills can win it here. Reich puts it down. The kick is on the way, and it is good. And the Bills have won it. The Bills have won it. The Bills have won it. They win it 41-38. Incredible. What a comeback by the Bills.
And the fans are all over the field.
Incredible. This place is pandemonium.
Look at the fans pouring onto the field and the mob scene of Steve Christie.